Bonjour, and welcome back to Le Podcast de Philippe.
Yes.
Today we're diving into a new book
Okay.
that has been generating a lot of buzz. It's Robert D. Kaplan's Wasteland, A World in Permanent Crisis.
Ah, yes.
And
We've
Kaplan,
heard of this.
he argues that the world is on the brink of major upheaval.
Right.
And he draws some pretty unsettling parallels between today's political climate and
interesting.
the turbulent period of the Weimar Republic in Germany.
Ooh. Yeah, I can see where this is going.
So we're going to unpack Kaplan's arguments.
Okay.
Explore his comparison of Trump to figures like Napoleon and Lenin.
Okay.
And discuss what it all means for the future.
Yeah.
And if you find this deep dive insightful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
And give this video a thumbs up.
Great.
So Kaplan's book,
Okay.
it's been getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's definitely thought-provoking.
For good reason.
He doesn't just present a bleak outlook.
Right.
He lays out 5 specific challenges
Oh, okay.
that he believes are pushing the world
Okay.
toward this permanent crisis.
5 challenges.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Let's hear them.
So let's dive into those.
Yeah.
What are these 5 horsemen of the apocalypse, so to speak?
Okay, so the first 3 are probably not that surprising. War, climate change, and great power rivalry.
Yeah. We're all dealing with those in one way or another.
Right, exactly. Those are issues that are on everyone's minds these days.
Right.
But what I found really interesting were the last 2 challenges that Kaplan points out.
Okay.
Rapid technological advancement and the end of empire.
The end of empire.
Yeah.
What does he mean by that?
So he's talking about the decline of those traditional global powers.
Okay.
And at the same time,
Yeah.
the rise of new and often unpredictable actors
Oh, I see.
on the world stage.
Okay.
You know, think about like the shifting dynamics
Yeah.
between the U.S., China, and Russia.
Right. It's a far cry from that relatively stable
Right.
post-World War II order.
Exactly.
And you know, this creates instability, obviously. It creates power vacuums and ample opportunity for conflict to just erupt.
So we're basically in
Yeah.
this messy transition period with no clear vision of what the new world order will look like.
Exactly. And
And if we add in
Yeah.
the rapid pace of technological change, it's a little unsettling.
it is. And you know, Kaplan, he takes it a step further.
Okay.
He argues that with the speed of information
Right.
in our digital age, combined with things like climate change and mass migration,
Okay.
it means that any national disaster, like a pandemic or recession,
Wow.
even a natural disaster,
Yeah.
it can quickly escalate into a global crisis.
It's like everything is interconnected
Exactly.
in a way that makes us more vulnerable,
Yeah.
but also more interdependent.
Yes, definitely. It's a double-edged sword.
It's a very sobering thought.
It is.
But Wasteland has received
Yeah.
a lot of positive attention.
I've seen that. It's been.
It's appearing on must-read lists
Yeah.
from publications like the Financial Times Foreign Policy, the Sunday Times.
Mm.
So it's a book that's definitely resonating with people.
Yeah, and I think one of the most compelling and maybe even controversial aspects of the book is its exploration of the parallels between the current global situation and the Weimar Republic,
Okay.
particularly in the context of Donald Trump's presidency.
This comparison between Trump and the political climate of the Weimar Republic seems to be central to his argument.
It is. It's a key part of the book.
So can you unpack that for us a little bit?
Sure. So Kaplan, he sees Trump as this potentially disruptive figure capable of upending the established order.
Right.
And he uses the mule character.
The mule character.
Yeah.
From Isaac Asimov's Foundation series as an analogy. So you're saying a science fiction character.
I know it sounds a little unusual.
Yeah. Helps us understand a 21st century political leader.
But the analogy is actually quite apt.
Oh.
Trump's rise to power was unexpected.
Right.
And a lot of his actions, challenging established norms, withdrawing from international agreements, undermining democratic institutions, these sent shockwaves through the global system. And Kaplan argues these actions echo the instability and uncertainty that characterized the Weimar Republic.
It sounds like Kaplan is arguing that Trump, similar to leaders who emerged during the Weimar Republic's crises, exploited existing discontent and distrust in American institutions.
Exactly. He really tapped into that.
Yeah.
To gain power and further his own agenda.
And if we think about Trump's America First approach,
yes,
it definitely echoes some of the isolationist tendencies
absolutely
of the interwar period.
Yeah.
This idea of withdrawing from the world stage
Right.
and focusing solely on national interests, even at the expense of global cooperation.
Yeah, it's a concerning parallel.
It has some uncomfortable historical parallels.
It does.
And then you have his skepticism towards international institutions.
Yes.
Like the UN, the WTO, the WHO.
Right.
It mirrors those critiques of internationalism.
Exactly.
That were prevalent during the Weimar era.
Yeah, there was a sense then, as there is now, that these organizations are ineffective.
Right.
Or even harmful to national interests.
That's fascinating.
It is.
And a bit unnerving
to
see how these historical echoes are resurfacing in contemporary politics.
Yeah, it's something to think about, for sure.
But before we delve deeper into those parallels, I think it's time for a quick break.
Okay.
We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into Robert D. Kaplan's Wasteland.
Ooh.
We're back and still discussing Robert D. Kaplan's Wasteland.
Yes.
And before the break, we were talking about those parallels that Kaplan draws between Donald Trump's presidency and the political climate of the Weimar Republic.
So digging deeper into those parallels, Kaplan points out that both Trump and leaders during the Weimar era, they exploited that public discontent and that growing distrust of institutions to gain power. They tapped into those feelings of frustration and anger, offering those simplistic solutions to complex problems and often scapegoating outsiders or minorities.
It definitely resonates with what we were just discussing about his America First rhetoric.
Absolutely.
And his skepticism of international organizations.
Yeah, it's a pattern that seems to repeat itself.
Yeah.
Throughout history.
Yeah, this inward turn and rejection of global cooperation in times of uncertainty.
Exactly. And it also ties into another parallel that Kaplan highlights. That willingness to break with those established norms and rules. So like Trump's disregard for traditional political decorum, his attacks on the media and the judiciary, his tendency to govern by executive order, these all reflect a disregard for those checks and balances that are crucial to a functioning democracy. Similarly, the Weimar Republic saw a rise in extremist groups and political violence as those traditional norms and institutions eroded.
It's almost as if these leaders are facing a world that they perceive as chaotic and threatening, and they try to impose their own sense of order, even if it means bending or breaking the rules.
I think you're right.
But Kaplan doesn't stop with the Weimar Republic.
No, he doesn't.
He goes on to draw comparisons between Trump and figures like Napoleon Bonaparte and Vladimir Lenin. And it's a pretty bold claim.
It is a bold claim.
To compare a modern-day American president
to
such historically significant figures. Do you think those comparisons hold up under scrutiny?
It's definitely provocative, but I think Kaplan makes a pretty compelling case. You know? He's not saying that Trump is a Napoleon or a Lenin, like in terms of their specific ideologies or accomplishments, but he's highlighting certain shared characteristics.
Okay, like what?
Like their populism, their ambition, their ability to disrupt existing power structures, and their use of nationalist rhetoric to appeal to the masses.
So it's more about identifying those patterns of behavior and leadership styles that kind of transcend those specific historical contexts.
Precisely. Think about it. Napoleon, Lenin, and Trump, all coming from vastly different backgrounds and eras, all presented themselves as outsiders, fighting against a corrupt or ineffective establishment.
And they appealed directly to the people. Often bypassing traditional political channels. Relying on those powerful personalities.
And persuasive rhetoric to build their movement.
Exactly. And they all to varying degrees, sought to centralize power around their own persona, weakening or dismantling institutions that might challenge their authority.
This tendency toward the personalization of power is a common thread that runs through their leadership styles.
Absolutely. They saw themselves as indispensable, as the only ones capable of solving those crises they identified. And they were all masterful at using media and propaganda to shape public perception and advance their agendas.
It's fascinating to see those parallels emerge when you step back and look at the broader historical context.
Absolutely. But I'm sure Kaplan acknowledges that these are complex figures who can't be easily categorized or compared without nuance. Absolutely. While he draws these thought-provoking parallels, Kaplan emphasizes that historical context matters.
Each leader operated within a unique set of circumstances, facing different challenges and opportunities. So direct comparisons should be made cautiously and with a deep understanding of the nuances of each historical period.
So while there are clear similarities in their leadership styles and approaches to power, it's important to remember that history doesn't repeat itself exactly.
And that's a crucial point to keep in mind.
Well, what's the value then?
Well, the value in exploring these historical parallels is not in predicting the future, but in understanding the patterns of human behavior and political dynamics that have led to crises in the past. By recognizing these patterns, we can be more vigilant in identifying and addressing those warning signs in our own time.
It's a reminder that we're not passive passengers.
Exactly.
In the flow of history.
We have agency.
We have the ability and the responsibility to learn from the past and make informed choices that shape our present and future.
Exactly.
And speaking of the future, I'm curious to know what Kaplan suggests we do to navigate these challenges. He lays out in Wasteland.
Well, he does offer some solutions, some paths forward amidst all the warnings.
So what does he say?
Well, he argues that America, despite the challenges it faces, has the potential to weather this storm and emerge as a force for stability and progress in the world.
But how?
But this, he says, requires a conscious effort to rediscover and re-embrace those core values that have historically underpinned American strength and resilience.
What are those values?
He emphasizes the importance of order, the rule of law, and a renewed commitment to freedom and tolerance.
So he's essentially calling for a return to the principles of liberal democracy.
Yes, principles that have been somewhat eroded in recent years, both in the U.S. and globally.
It's interesting because, in a way, he's advocating for a return to tradition. As a way to face the future. It's not about clinging to the past blindly.
No.
But about recognizing that enduring power of certain values and principles.
That's a really insightful way to put it. And I think it speaks to that broader message of Wasteland. It's a call to action. A reminder that we're not powerless in the face of these global challenges.
They can shape the future.
Yes, but it requires awareness, critical thinking, a willingness to learn from the past, and a commitment to upholding the values that have guided us through difficult times before.
And perhaps most importantly, engaging in that thoughtful dialogue and debate.
Absolutely.
Which is something we strive to do here.
Yes.
On the podcast, actually.
Exactly. We don't shy away from complex or controversial topics.
We believe that informed discussion is essential to a healthy democracy.
Absolutely. And in that spirit, I'd like to leave our listeners with a final question to ponder. Given those historical parallels that Kaplan lays out, what lessons can we learn from the past to navigate those complexities and challenges of the present and future?
That's an excellent question.
It is something to think about.
And one that deserves careful consideration.
It does.
You know, we've covered a lot of ground in this episode.
Well, we have.
But I think it's clear that Robert D. Kaplan's Wasteland is a book that raises important questions.
It does.
About the state of our world and the choices that we face as individuals and as a global community.
It's a challenging read.
It is.
But an important one.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths
Right.
about the world we live in.
Yeah.
And to think critically about the choices that we make, both individually and collectively, and sometimes a little discomfort.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we need. Yeah.
To shake things up and spark real change.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
To our listeners, I highly recommend checking out Wasteland.
Yes, it's a great book.
It's a book that will stay with you long after you finish reading it.
I agree.
And if you're looking for more thought-provoking deep dives into fascinating topics, be sure to subscribe to the podcast de Philippe on YouTube.
Yes.
And give this video a thumbs up.
Please do.
We'll be back soon.
Yes, we will.
With more explorations of the ideas that are shaping our world.
That's right.
Until then, stay curious. Keep learning.
Always.
And as always, thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it really is a call to action for all of us to be more informed and engaged citizens.
It is.
To recognize that history doesn't just happen to us.
Right.
We play a role in shaping it.
He reminds us that we have the power to learn from the past, to identify those potential pitfalls.
And hopefully chart a better course for the future.
And that starts with understanding the complexities of the world and engaging in thoughtful dialogue about the challenges we face.
Which is exactly what we aim to do.
Right here on the podcast de Philippe.
That's right. We want to dive deep into these important topics, encourage critical thinking, and spark those meaningful conversations.
Yeah, among our listeners.
Among your listeners.
And Wasteland provides a really valuable framework.
It does.
Of those conversations.
It challenges us to think critically about the role of leadership, the dangers of populism and nationalism, and the importance of upholding democratic values and institutions in a time of global uncertainty.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But I think it's clear.
Yeah.
That Robert D. Kaplan has given us a lot to think about.
He has. So to your listeners, I highly encourage you to check out Wasteland.
Yes. It's a book that will challenge your assumptions.
It will.
And leave you with a renewed appreciation for the importance of understanding history.
Absolutely.
And our place in it.
And if you're looking for more thought-provoking deep dives into fascinating topics,
please be sure to subscribe to the podcast de Philippe on YouTube.
That's right.
And give this video a thumbs up.
Yes, give it a thumbs up.
We'll be back soon with more explorations of the ideas that are shaping our world.
We will.
Until then, stay curious. Keep learning.
Keep learning.
And as always, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.